Let's bring in now KMIR News political analyst Hank Plante. Hank, let's talk a little bit about this. 30 counts. Any surprises in what you heard?
Yes, this is a bombshell. This is a bombshell. And I think the surprise for everybody is John Westman's name. We kind of knew that an indictment was coming against Plante and against Richard Meany, who was a developer, but to have Westman's name brought into this, I'm sure surprised a lot of people besides Westman himself. Here's what this case is about in a nutshell, Gino. All right, Plante was paid money, now we know $375,000. He listed $200,000 on his financial disclosure form.
Right.
And he was paid that money by Richard Meany, who is a developer. And Plante said he was acting as a consultant.
Right.
All right. Coincidentally, at about the same time, Richard Meany was buying city-owned land at below market rates. For example, he bought one piece of land from the city at $193,000, and he had to buy the adjacent piece of land for $1 million. So it shows you what...
Right, because that was privately owned.
Correct.
And the city owned the one he got for $193,000.
Correct.
Right.
So what everybody was wondering, now this was reported by the Desert Sun, which has done an outstanding job on this story, and so what everybody was wondering was, can you connect the dots? And D.A. Hestron is obviously saying, yes, we can connect the dots for that $200,000 and more. He said there's $375,000 in alleged bribes that happened.
Right. Well, and in all fairness, you and the Desert Sun way out in front on this story. In fact, the DA even mentioned it in this press conference that it was those articles that sort of lit up their eyes, and then complaints from the public after having read those articles.
Yes, he gave credit to the newspaper. He also gave credit to people who called in. He called them whistleblowers after they read the stories in the Desert Sun, people in City Hall, we presume, and who called in and offered evidence and tips to the DA's office. This is huge, and it's a shame. Right. And it comes during this renaissance in Palm Springs. It comes as Modernism Week is about to take off. We got 70,000 people coming to town for Modernism Week, and it's a real stain on that beautiful city.
All right, let's break it down, the 30 counts. Now, 1 through 18 in the counts are for bribery.
Right.
And it seems pretty blatant. In fact, Mike Hestron had said that they had shell companies, but it didn't take much for investigators to just scratch the surface and realize that's what they were.
Right, and here's an example of that. Plante listed $200,000 on his official disclosure forms that politicians have to fill out from a company called Union Abbey. Well, nobody ever heard of Union Abbey, and in fact, they didn't even have a state business license. As it turns out, Union Abbey was a company run by Richard Meany. Meany had worked for a company called Nexus Development, which we all do know, a very prominent developer in California, and so there were other companies like that, like Union Abbey. And I'll tell you something that the newspaper has not reported that I learned about, which is that there were 2 investigators from the DA's office in Palm Springs within the past month re-interviewing people, including current and former members of the city council and others who are not elected in City Hall, and they were asking questions about companies that were new to people. Yes, they asked about Meany, they asked about Westman, they asked about Union Abbey, but then they started asking about all these other companies that these people being interviewed had not heard of. Right. And so now we know they were probably shell companies, as the DA called them, for this behavior.
So it didn't take much for them to dig into that. Yeah. All right, the ripple effects on this are widespread. Not to mention you've got a former mayor who quite possibly could go to prison for what he's done.
Yes.
There could still be federal charges coming.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, Palm Springs is in a booming renaissance. There could be collateral damage, frankly, with the downtown project, with the Virgin Hotel.
Right. So John Westman is one of the biggest developers in the valley. He's probably the biggest developer, as far as I know. He's been developing here for 50 years. He is building the new downtown, where we see the Kimpton Hotel going up and the Virgin Hotel going up, we hope. We don't know about that yet. And other stores down there. And here's what Mike Hestron said at the end that you and I both noticed. I noticed you writing it down when I wrote it down. Hestron said, now these are deals that Westman has done with the City of Palm Springs. City of Palm Springs is kicking in $43 million on this $300 million project. What Hestron said was some of those deals may have to be unwound and undone. Really?
Right.
Really?
We're halfway through the downtown project.
Yes.
If that's unwound at this point,
Are
does
you
it
kidding?
come to a screeching halt?
I don't know.
And
I don't
does the
think anybody
city
does.
have the resources to funnel in money to get that completed?
Well, at some point, I think the city can, there's probably a better legal term, but foreclose.
Right.
I think the city can actually take it over. But what happens to Westman now? He's under indictment. What happens to that project? Now, the Westman Company, I'm sure this afternoon will be saying, well, everything's fine. John's son-in-law, Michael Braun, is a very sharp guy, which he is, and he'll be running things. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that project and what the repercussions are going to be, but that's what people ought to be worried about. I'll tell you something else, another reaction that I had, which is there are a lot of people in Palm Springs right now breathing a sigh of relief that their pictures were not on that wall when those reporters walked into that press conference.
Right, because there's been speculation, city managers, city attorneys, some other city council members could well be indicted as part of it as well. Their names did not appear, but Hestron also said they may not be done.
Yeah, my hunch from watching everything, Hestron was very thorough today. I think that we've seen their cards. Okay. I think that this is the case. These are the people. So,
right. Yeah. All right. And then real quickly, we'll run through the 19 through 26 counts were a conflict of interest. That's only directed at former Mayor Steve Pugnier.
Right.
And that's just land deals.
Right.
He's voting on land deals that he had a financial interest in.
Yeah, he actually recused, he made the mistake of voting on one. He actually recused himself from voting on the others, but still he allegedly took the money.
Right. All right. And then the final counts were conspiracy to bribe, which is then again all three of them. So
you've also got perjury. Because he didn't list the rest of that 375,000.
Right. And then lied to the FBI about it.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
All right. So there you have it. A 30-count criminal indictment against former Palm Springs Mayor Steve Pugnier, businessman Richard Meany, and developer John Westman. We are going to break this all down for you throughout the day today. We'll be back here at 11 o'clock in about 20 minutes or so. We're going to send you back to the Today Show. We're going to have more for you at 11, and then, of course, throughout the afternoon at 4:30, 5, and 6. Thank you for joining KMIR News. Thank you, Hank Plante, as always, for being here for us. We'll see you back here at 11 o'clock.